You've seen Draymond Green scream. You've seen him yell at refs, argue with opponents, even get tossed from games. He's one of the fiercest competitors in NBA history. But there was a moment, captured off camera, never meant for public eyes, where Draymond broke down. Not just emotionally, completely. And Stephen Curry, he was right there beside him. This isn't about basketball. This is about pain, loss, and the kind of grief that doesn't care how much money you have, how famous you are, or how tough you look on the court. It happened after a game. A regular season game. Nothing special about it. Warriors had just won. The locker room was buzzing like normal. But something was off with Draymond. Teammates noticed. Coaches noticed. And Steph? He knew exactly why. Because it was the anniversary. Not of just any day. It was the one-year mark since Draymond's father, James, passed away. James Green wasn't just a dad. He was a rock. A constant presence in Draymond's life. Through every low point, every college rejection, every time someone told his son he'd never make it to the NBA because he was too small, too slow, not flashy enough. James Green believed. And when Draymond made it, when he became a champion, a household name, an all-star, James was there. Every step of the way. Until he wasn't. The loss hit hard. Harder than anyone expected. Even though everyone knew how close they were, no one truly understood the weight of what Draymond carried. Until that night. Steph found him sitting alone in the training room. Just Draymond, staring at the wall, silent tears running down his face. "You good?" Steph asked quietly. Draymond didn't answer at first. Then he whispered, "No." That one word broke open everything. "I miss him, man," Draymond said. His voice cracked. "I miss him every single day." Steph sat down next to him. Didn't say anything at first, just sat. And then Draymond started talking about how he still texts his dad sometimes, how he hears his voice in his head before big games, how he keeps expecting to walk into the stands and see him sitting there, wearing that same old Michigan hat, giving him that proud nod. But he never does. "He was my guy," Draymond said, wiping his face. "My real guy. You know what I'm saying?" Steph nodded. "Yeah, man, I do." There was silence for a few seconds. Just the sound of muffled voices from the locker room down the hall. Then Draymond looked at Steph and said something that stunned even him. "Sometimes I feel like I don't deserve all this." Steph turned to him, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we fought so hard to get here. We did all this together. But now I'm standing up here getting all these moments, and he's not here to see it." His voice broke again. "I just wish he could have seen me win another ring. I wish he could have seen me prove everyone wrong again. I wish." He couldn't finish the sentence. Steph put a hand on his shoulder. "He knows, man. He knows." And that's when it really hit Draymond. Not just the sadness, the loneliness, because as loud and fiery as he is on the court, in that moment he was just a kid missing his dad. A grown man who had everything, fame, fortune, legacy, but couldn't buy back one more minute with the person who believed in him when nobody else did. Steph stayed with him for a long time. They talked about James, about memories, about how life moves so fast, and how easy it is to forget to stop and feel what you're really feeling. When they finally walked out of that room, neither of them said anything. No cameras caught it. No reporter wrote about it. But if you ever wondered what makes the Warriors more than just teammates, what makes their bond unbreakable, this is why. Because they carry each other's pain. They lift each other up when the world feels too heavy. And sometimes they just sit in silence and cry together. There's a moment, just a few seconds, that changed everything for Draymond Green. It wasn't during a game, not on the court, not when he won his first ring, not even when he was named Defensive Player of the Year. It was late at night, just him and his phone. He had just come off one of the best wins of the season. The crowd was loud, the energy was high. But once the lights dimmed and the locker room emptied, He was alone again. That's when he opened his messages and saw something that broke him. It was an old text from his dad, just a simple message, nothing crazy, just James checking in, making sure Draymond had eaten, telling him to get some rest before the next game. Draymond stared at it. And then he did something he hadn't done since the funeral. He cried. Not the kind you hide. The kind where your whole body shakes. Because in that moment, it hit him like a truck. His dad would never send another text, would never show up at a game with that same smile, would never tell him, "You did good, son." That was it. That was all. But it was enough to bring him to his knees. A few days later, Steph found him sitting outside the practice facility. It was late. Everyone else had gone home. Draymond was just staring at the sky. Steph walked over and sat beside him without saying a word. They stayed like that for a while. Then Draymond said, "I don't know how to do this without him." Steph didn't pretend to have answers. Instead he said, "Tell me about him." So Draymond did. He told stories no reporter ever heard. Stories about road trips when he was a kid. About how his dad always knew what to say when he got cut from teams. How he'd sit with him after every loss and remind him why he played. "He made me believe," Draymond whispered. "Even when I didn't believe in myself." Steph nodded. "He raised a warrior." Draymond looked at him, eyes full of pain. "Then why do I feel so weak?" Steph didn't flinch. "Because you're human," he said. "And losing your dad, man, that messes you up." Silence fell between them again. But it wasn't heavy. It was peaceful, like two friends holding space for something bigger than basketball. After that night, things started to shift. Draymond still had tough days, still had moments where grief showed up out of nowhere, but now he had someone who understood, someone who wouldn't tell him to toughen up, or move on, someone who would just sit with him, and sometimes, that's all you need. It started with a voicemail. Draymond didn't even remember checking it at first. Life had been moving so fast. Games, travel, interviews, meetings. He barely had time to breathe, let alone sit down and process everything he was feeling. But one night, after everyone had gone home, and the practice facility was empty, he found himself scrolling through old messages, and there it was. A voicemail from his dad. He almost didn't play it. His hands shook as he pressed the button. The sound of James Green's voice filled his headphones. "Hey son, just wanted to check in on you. I saw the game tonight. You played tough. Real proud of you." Pause. "I know you're going through something right now. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know you, and I know when something's weighing on you." Another pause. "You don't have to carry it alone, man. Talk to someone. Let people in. That's not weakness. That's strength." Then silence. Just like that. No long speech. No big moment. But those few sentences, they hit harder than any loss on the court. Because Draymond realized something in that moment. His dad already knew. Even before he passed. James Green could feel the storm building inside his son. And he left him a lifeline. One last message. One last piece of advice. And now, it was all Draymond had left. That same week, Steph pulled him aside after practice. "You good?" he asked again. Draymond looked at him, and for once didn't try to hide it. "No," he said. "I'm not." Steph nodded like he expected it. "You want to talk about it?" Draymond hesitated. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and played the voicemail. They stood there together, listening to James' voice echo through the empty hallways. When it ended, neither of them spoke. There was no need to, because sometimes just being heard is enough. That voicemail became something Draymond carried with him, not just in his phone, but in his heart. He played it over and over again, not because he needed to hear the words, but because he needed to feel close to his dad again. It wasn't about advice anymore. It was about connection. One night, after a long road trip, Draymond sat alone in his hotel room. He had just finished a tough game. The Warriors won, but he didn't play like himself. Teammates noticed. Coaches asked if he was okay. He told them he was fine. But when he got back to his room, he pulled out his phone and hit play. The voice came through the speaker again. "Hey son." And that's when it hit him. His dad still felt real. Not in the way people talk about ghosts or dreams, but in the way he spoke, the way he cared, the way he always knew when something was off. Draymond started talking back, out loud. "I miss you, Dad. I'm trying. I really am. I wish you were here." He didn't cry this time. He just sat there, feeling less alone. A few days later, Steph walked into the locker room and saw Draymond staring at his phone. "You playing it again?" he asked softly. Draymond nodded without looking up. Steph sat down next to him. "Can I hear it?" Draymond handed him the phone. They both listened. When it ended, Steph looked at him and said, "You know, your dad would have loved being around the team right now." Draymond raised an eyebrow. "Why?" Steph smiled. "Because we're family. And he raised you to be part of something bigger than yourself." Draymond didn't say anything for a moment. Then he whispered, "I just don't want to forget him." Steph put a hand on his shoulder. "You won't," he said. "Not as long as you keep telling his story." From that day on, something changed. Draymond started opening up more. Not just to Steph, but to teammates, coaches, even reporters. He talked about his dad, about grief, about how losing someone doesn't mean they leave forever. Sometimes, all it takes is one voicemail, one friend who listens, and one moment where you realize you're not alone. It was the night before what would have been his dad's birthday. Draymond sat in his living room, phone in hand, staring at an empty text box. He had done this every year since James passed, typed out a message, then deleted it. But tonight felt different. Maybe because he had been carrying that voicemail for so long now. Maybe because he had finally started to talk about his grief instead of hiding it. Or maybe because he felt like his dad was still listening. So he typed, "Happy birthday, Dad. I miss you more than words. Wish you were here. But I know you're watching. I'll make you proud. Always." He hit send, even though it went to a number that would never reply. And then something happened. Something he couldn't explain. His phone buzzed. Not from a message. From a call. "Steph." Draymond answered. "Hey man." Steph said. "I was just thinking about you." Draymond smiled. "Yeah? Yeah? You doing okay?" Draymond looked around the quiet room. "I think I am," he said. There was a pause on the other end. Then Steph said, "You ever think about telling this story? Like really telling it?" Draymond knew what he meant. Not just the voicemail, not just the breakdown in the locker room, but all of it. The pain, the healing, the lessons. "You think people would care?" Draymond asked. Steph didn't hesitate. "They'd need it," he said. "Because there's someone out there right now hurting like you did. And they might hear your story and feel less alone." Draymond didn't say anything for a moment. Then he whispered, "Okay." A few weeks later, Draymond stood in front of a crowd, not on a basketball court, in a small community center. He told the story about his dad, about grief, about how losing someone doesn't mean they leave forever. And as he spoke, he saw kids in the audience nodding, adults wiping their eyes, parents holding their children a little tighter, because grief doesn't care who you are. But healing, that can come from the most unexpected places, like a voicemail, or a friend who sits with you in silence, or a story that reminds you, you're not alone.